my name is Zoe. I am the Tipsy Psychic, and today we're going to talk about how to know if you are seeing a good psychic. We're also going to discuss the difference between a bad reading and a fraudulent reading, because there is a difference, and it's really important to be able to distinguish this. There's often this idea that it's either a really good reader or they're a fraud. So it's important to note that everyone has their own way of doing a reading. There is no rule book for psychics. There is no real degree that qualifies you as a psychic. There is no path that is set for psychics to have a career. It's something that a lot of people develop on their own and develop along the way. And it's not necessarily good or bad, it's just different for everybody. Everyone has a different journey. It doesn't matter if they're gazing into a crystal ball or looking at a spread of tarot cards or reading tea leaves or gazing at a palm or asking a spirit guide for answers. There are so many ways to give a psychic interpretation. And the truth is, anyone can have a psychic experience. And no method is more powerful than another method. For example, one of the most powerful readings my friend ever got was at this psychic fair, and there was this makeshift booth, and she got this reading where somebody had crumpled up Hershey bars and kind of just read the shapes and used that as a form of divination. As opposed to all of the other really famous psychics, renowned psychics that were supposed to be really, really powerful, really professional, really special. This was the one that was the most powerful for her. The other thing is, two psychics can use the exact same technique, but tell you two different things. Chances are they're both right, but they just focus on different aspects and different areas of your life. So when you're trying to find a psychic, you have to ask yourself, which psychic is what I truly need? It's not about who tells you what you want to know. It's about asking yourself what I need to know. What is it that I need to know? Not what is it that I want to know. And that's going to be very different for everybody. So one psychic might tell you tons of things that are accurate, but does it mean it's a good reading? You might see a very unhelpful psychic that just isn't vibing with you. And that doesn't make them a terrible psychic. It means they are not the psychic that you need. It's also important to understand that psychic energy is not always flowing. They aren't machines, they're still people. And there are times when the cards aren't revealing anything. There have been days where I've given readings and the cards were just not communicating with me, or the answers are just not revealing themselves. It can be unpredictable, and this is normal. It's very frustrating, don't get me wrong, but it does happen. What bad psychics tend to do is they will lie and make stuff up. This is fraudulent behavior. A good psychic will always be honest with you. If they're not able to give you the answers, then they should tell you that, and they should give you your money back. So if you are meeting with a psychic, instead of just assuming that they're bad at their job, if they're being honest with you and they're saying, look, the cards aren't showing me what I need to see about you, and I don't think I'm the right psychic for you, here's your money back. It doesn't mean that they're a bad psychic, because you will encounter people like this, right? But what would make them bad, what would make them fraudulent, is if they made stuff up just to entertain you, just to have the reading. So this is very important, okay? Because, and oftentimes you won't know, right? If it's a fraudulent psychic, there are other ways to know if they're frauds, and I will go into that. But sometimes you won't know. Maybe they'll make shit up and you'll be like, wow, that makes sense. But really, the cards weren't saying anything to them, and they took your money and they lied to you. So that's why it's really important for people to be able to spot fraudulent activity, fraudulent behavior, but also to understand when the reading is just bad and it's not fraudulent, but it's just not a good reading. And it could be a one-time thing, but sometimes you just don't vibe with a psychic. It's kind of like a therapist, you have to find one that works with you, and not all of them are good for you. Not all of them work with you. They might work with your friend, but not with you. So it's really going to be a personal thing too. So let's start with fraudulent readings. What are some signs that this reading is fraudulent, that it's not real? Because unfortunately, in my line of work, there are a lot of frauds. And it's really important for you to be able to know when you are being fucked with versus when you're just not vibing with a psychic and they're not able to vibe with you, right? So let's start with fraudulent behavior. Number one, they just tell you what you want to hear. You know, that's what you were hoping for and everything seems perfect, then maybe something's off. Number two, a fraud will tell you exact numbers and dates when things will happen. So while sometimes in readings, you know, you can get very specific on when something will happen, if a fraud is telling you like, okay, on January 12th in 2030, this is gonna happen to you specifically, and you're gonna have this amount of things happen to you or meet all these exes, that is definitely fraudulent. Because that's not how this works. The third sign to look out for is when they offer to sell you something, or they try to heal you or offer to fix you. Sometimes they'll try to sell you a crystal at the end, or tell you some kind of trick that you need to do or ritual, or that you need to come back and see them over and over again. This is fraudulent. Number four, if they tell you that you are cursed or you are experiencing a psychic attack or there was a hex put on you. Number five, that leads me to if they scare you. If they do anything that causes you fear or they frighten you in any way, that is fraudulent, because that is not the goal of a professional psychic. You shouldn't feel terrified when you go see them. Number six, if they charge you tons of money. Yes, psychics can be expensive. You know, everyone's different with their readings. They charge differently. Sometimes it can be a couple hundred. It really depends on the service, and it depends on the psychic, and it depends on, you know, the business. But if they're charging you your rent, you know, or if they're charging you like thousands and thousands of dollars, that is not okay. That is fraudulent behavior. Never ever give any credit card information or social security, nothing like that. And do not go bankrupt because of a psychic. And some of these fraudulent people are very good scam artists, and they're good at scamming you, and they will take. And those people should be in jail, really, in prison, because they are very bad people. Number seven, if they ask for personal info, something very specific like your first name, your last name, if they ask for your birthday, it doesn't matter if they claim it's for astrology, like you have to be very careful. I remember I went to see a fraudulent psychic once, and they asked me for my first name and last name, and I could see that they were going on Facebook to look up who I was and my information, and I didn't give them my name. I gave them like a fake one, so of course they were completely off. But it was crazy, and yeah, just don't. Number eight, they tell you when or how you will die. If they're telling you when you're gonna die or your estimated time of death, this is very, very bad. Okay, this is not professional. This is very fraudulent, and it's the sign that you need to get the fuck out of there and you need to not be there. The ninth sign of fraudulent behavior is when they give you legal advice or medical advice that they are not qualified to give. So there are a lot of healers out there that will kind of say, oh, this chakra is blocked or whatever, that's fine. But if they tell you that you have cancer, or there's only one way to cure your cancer, or that you're not gonna win your custody case tomorrow, or that it's in the cards for you, and they are not lawyers or medical professionals, and they are not qualified to give you this professional legal advice, run. Like, this is not good behavior. This is wrong. So those are some main ways to spot a fraud. And these are tactics that are really common when frauds are supposedly giving readings. So make sure you keep an eye out for this. Like I said, fraudulent activity is really different from just a bad reading. And even good psychics have bad readings, or especially psychics that aren't experienced and they don't really know how to be professional, or they're just not having a good day. And this is the kind of bad reading you should be aware of, and you should probably seek out a different psychic. So if they're just telling you vague statements and they're not really elaborating on things that maybe apply to anybody all the time, then this is not a good reading. The second sign of a bad reading is if you don't feel connected to them in any way. Like I said, you need to vibe with them. If you feel like it's off and the connection's just off, then this is not a good reader for you. Number 3, if they are only talking about events that haven't happened yet, or things that are supposedly in the future that will happen, this is not a really good reading, because it's not really helpful. You don't really know what's going to happen, and it doesn't really help you to know. It's not like they're giving you the steps and looking at you. They're just like predicting these things. And I'm not saying they're wrong. Some psychics are really good at predictions, but it's usually not a very productive reading if they just focus on things that haven't happened yet. And you kind of just have to guess. Number 4, if they read you every day. A good reader knows that things just play out. They have to play out. You have to apply the things to your life, and things have to unravel. And there is no way that reading somebody every single day is productive or helpful or healthy. I have a rule personally where I will only read someone every 2 weeks. There has to be at least 2 weeks that have passed, because I know that it's not helpful for them, for that person, to constantly come back, and things need time to play out. Things need time to work. So a bad reader will read someone constantly. Number 5, they beat around the bush. So when a psychic is giving a reading, if it's a good psychic, they're going to be honest and very straightforward. Everyone has their own way of giving readings for sure, but beating around the bush and going in circles is not helpful. And a bad reading will be like that. You'll feel like you're kind of waiting for the answer and you can't really get it. You can't get to the point. 6, they tell you it's fate, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's your destiny. So I do believe there's destiny and fate. But in psychic readings, we go to see psychic readers because we want answers, right? We want to get perspective on something. We don't want to hear that there's nothing we can do about it. Of course there's something you can do about it. We all have free will, and what psychic readers do is they provide perspective on a situation. They know that nothing is written in stone, like set in stone, and anything can change. And when a psychic says it's fate and this is how it's going to be and you can't do anything about it, you're doomed, or this is how it's going to play out, that's not productive and it's not good, and it kind of takes away from the purpose of the reading. Number 7, they are really rude. A good reader is probably going to try to make their client feel more comfortable and not be a bitch, right? So this is very important. If you feel like your psychic is being rude, then they are probably not the psychic for you, and it's probably not a great reading. Number 8, if they are biased. So this is a big one. A lot of the time you can't give a proper reading if you're really biased about something. Like, it does play a part in it, especially when you're giving advice, the advice element. So it's often a sign of a bad reading if that psychic is very biased about the thing that they are talking about, because it's really difficult to tap into your psychic energy and remain neutral when you feel so strongly about something or you are biased in your opinions. Number 9, when they probe you for information constantly. So it's normal to be able to open up and have a conversation or back and forth with the psychic if you want to. And I always encourage people to be honest and be open, right? But if they're constantly probing you and asking you for the information that they need and then kind of saying it back to you, then that is not a good sign. Number 10, they don't articulate what they see. I have experienced firsthand how sometimes it's really hard to put into words what I'm sensing and what I'm feeling. But if somebody has just a really hard time and you just like have no idea what they're saying and they're just like, this is what they're telling me, but they actually aren't explaining it to you, then that can be a sign that you're experiencing a bad reading. Number 11. They tell you honest things, but it isn't what you really need to hear. So like I said in the beginning, finding a good psychic is about finding what you need to know, not what you want to know. And so it can be very accurate, don't get me wrong, but is it the psychic reading that you need? Number 12, they are too theatrical. So I have experienced this with multiple psychics. It doesn't mean they're bad psychics, like they're not frauds, but they will envelop their reading with all this woo-woo, you know, like they're in a theater, like it's super dramatic. And it's very entertaining, don't get me wrong, and everyone has their own way of delivering information and saying things. But if it's really just like they're putting on a show, then they're kind of taking away from the information. And so that is probably not the best reading for you, especially when you're there not for entertainment but to really get something out of this reading and for it to be productive. The difficult thing is psychics often ask for money up front, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because it's also about being secure in their work. Being a professional is hard, you know? So a lot of the time they ask for money up front, and this can be really difficult, and it's important to ask the right questions and make sure you're getting what you need out of this. And some of the best readings can be like from somebody you would least expect, someone who isn't renowned for their work. Actually, a lot of these televised psychics are so bullshitters, like, oh my God. Anyway, so now that we have discussed fraudulent readings and bad readings, let's talk about what a good reading looks like. So number 1, the future is not set in stone. It's always in your power to do something about it. This is just the perspective on what is going on based on what they're seeing now. Number 2, they never tell you what you will be doing or what you're going to do, because you have free will. You know, they're not going to tell you you're going to travel to Brazil this year, because it's up to you to get on a plane to Brazil. You know, they can't make you travel. So a good psychic will never tell you what you will do. So I've had people ask me, will I get divorced? And I'm like, I can't fucking make you get divorced. Like, that's up to you if you want to get divorced. But here's what I'm seeing about your relationship. And here is what, you know, my advice is. But I can never tell you what you're going to do or what to do, because that is not my job. Number 3, they are honest with you and they tell you the truth even when you don't really want to hear it. Number 4, a good psychic will follow a code of ethics. I'm a huge advocate for creating a code of ethics as a psychic. I think it's really important to know where you stand, what your boundaries are, what you will and won't do, and to be very clear about them. So if you're a practicing psychic, you need to have a code of ethics. I will post some videos below that I have talked about a code of ethics, so you can create your own if you're a psychic. Number 5. So a good psychic reading really involves looking at where they're at now and then kind of looking at it from a different perspective, basically. You know, reading the situation and elaborating on it, being able to answer questions about it, That is a big part of psychic readings. Number 6, a lot of good psychic readers can look at a past situation to better understand the current one that they're in. Number 7, contrary to popular belief or folklore, a lot of psychics choose not to predict the future or make predictions. It really depends on the psychic. However, in a good psychic reading, they should be able to provide you with advice and give you perspective on how things can look in the future, how things are going, how they're playing out. Number 8, they never make anything up. Number 9, they make you feel more comfortable. You know, you should feel comfortable. You should feel like you can open up around the psychic. It should be a judgment-free zone. Number 10, they empower you and make you feel like you have answers. You shouldn't leave feeling confused or scared. You should leave feeling like you got something out of this reading. You got answers, or you feel like you can do this, like you are empowered. 11, they don't discuss matters that they're not legally qualified to discuss. This goes back to the code of ethics and following that and having an ethical practice. And number 12, they're accurate most of the time. Like I said, every psychic has their good and bad days, but if they're doing it professionally and they're giving good readings, then you should feel like what you're hearing is accurate. You know, you shouldn't have to sift through falsehoods, because, I mean, sometimes people have told me like they haven't been in the right mindset to hear it, so they're like, nah. And then later on I get a call saying, oh wow, actually you were right. How did I not see that? So, you know, in the moment, some things you might not want to hear. Some things are really difficult to make sense of, but they do make sense. And a good reader will always be accurate, at least as much as they can be given the situation and the connection you have. I definitely have clients that I just haven't connected with, and I've referred them to another person that I think might suit their needs better. And when I was younger and I was kind of figuring my shit out, there were times when I didn't fully understand my code of ethics, and I didn't really establish certain things. And so I was kind of all over the place, I guess, with my readings. And this was like in the beginning, because it's a journey and a lot of psychics are on this journey. So if they are just starting out, and I feel like the psychic portion is very different from the professional portion too. So it's kind of like you can be really good at readings, but when it comes to interacting with clients and being professional, that's a whole other skill set. And so it's really important to find people that you vibe with, people that you trust, and to be aware of what it means to be fraudulent and what it means to just have a shitty reading. So yeah, I hope that this helped. You know, it's not a black or white thing. Anyway, please let me know what you think. Have you ever gotten a bad reading? Have you ever gotten a fraudulent reading? Have you ever gotten a really good reading? I want to hear about them in the comment section below. Please subscribe to my channel. Bye-bye.